Hello everyone, and thank you very much for joining today's webinar with iDeliver Solutions. My name is Michael. We're going to be talking today about the Responsive Resource List. As titled, the Document and Resource Library Overpowered. During this webinar, we're going to be talking about how we've improved our former version of the Resource List, a drop-in application that you can add to any one of your SiteCM pages on your website. Should you have the resources asset added to your website license. The majority of us do, so we should all find that the responsive resource list is available. We're also going to be talking about how to add a responsive resource list to any of your website pages versus the non-responsive version or our out-of-the-box resource list. We're also going to talk about how to display documents as important within our responsive resource list. And we're going to take a look at some of the other properties of a responsive resource list as well. Now, we should all be looking at my screen. The non-responsive resource list, our current out-of-the-box solution, is currently displaying. I'm just going to scroll down here. We're going to take a look at the responsive resource list and take a look at some of the differences. What you're seeing here is the example of the responsive resource list. As you see, the display of the responsive resource list versus the non-responsive version has improved significantly. Not only is it mobile responsive, meaning it will resize itself to fit the single column display as we would expect on a mobile device, but it has some additional features as well. It lets your site visitors know what file type you're looking at, for example, PDFs, Word documents, Excel spreadsheets. The little icons here that display the left-hand side of the document names visually provide information to your visitors, what type of document they're about to view, download, open, etc. The responsive resource list out of the box also comes with indicators. For example, I recently uploaded this customizing your membership fields document to my responsive resource list in a category that the document has been uploaded to, and it's right away showing me that it is a new document versus the other documents. You can also, using responsive resource list, tell the list itself how long a document within the list should be considered as new or not. You can star documents by sharing your responsive resource additionally with an important category, where documents uploaded to that category will then appear with star icons to the left of them. This 2017 Google Analytics document was recently uploaded to the website's resource category. The responsive document resource list has been pointed to, and it is starred because I consider it an important document. The responsive resource list also provides a bit more sorting options than the current or formal version of the resource list. In the non-responsive version, you have the resource name and a description, if provided to the document within resources, appearing within a single column, and then the size of the document in the right-hand column. None of this is really clickable. The documents themselves, if all ranked using the or I should rephrase, if all documents are ranked with the same number, they'll all appear in the list in alphabetical order. If you provide separate rank numbers to your documents, they'll of course be organized within the list according to what rank numbers you've provided them. The responsive resource list, though, adds a bunch more functionality to it. Not only can you rank your documents, of course, within the category that you've pointed your responsive resource list to, but you can also sort the documents as well. Your site visitors can anyway, clicking the document name, resorting them alphabetically. They can sort it by creation date or when the document was actually uploaded to the manager, when it was last modified. If you replace this document within SiteCM using our upload replacement feature against the document, it'll show you the most recently modified version of that, the date when the document was last modified. And of course, it still includes that handy size column filter as well, so that you can sort your documents according to size. Now these are combining together. If I click modified and click size, obviously I'm going to get a combined sorting feature. Now, how does all this work? I'm going to be showing you now. I've already logged into SiteCM, so let's take a look together. As you know, the drop-in application resource list begins with a category of documents. Our former version was pointed to an individual category of documents. In this example, I'm under Assets and Resources within SiteCM, and I've created a document category called Test Page. This category name is really irrelevant. You can pretty much use we actually recommend that you title your categories more specifically to their use. Let's say this was a list of staff and public documents. You're also going to find for this example today, I've created a subcategory underneath of staff and public documents where I'm now uploading documents to this category, the important category. The name of this category, titled important, really is also interchangeable with other words, starred documents, important documents. There's really no fast and steady rule. You don't have to name it important. You just have to know that this is the category you are going to use to store your important documents in. And we're going to see why when we configure our responsive resource list to then display these categories of documents. The responsive resource list also can not only share not only display documents from one selected category, but multiple categories, subcategories to a root or parent category that we select. So if I create a whole tree of categories here where I want them all to individually display in my resource list, I can certainly do that. While still providing my responsive resource list an important category to store very important documents inside of, and to also then display those documents within this important resource list of documents. We all know how to upload a document to a category. Essentially what we do is there are a number of ways to upload a document to a category. You can click on the category, right-click on the category, and add resource to it. Choosing the category that you'd like to add to your resource list is selecting that document. You can, of course, add multiple documents to a category at one time. This is pretty straightforward, standard stuff. We know probably how to add resources to categories and such, so I'll move on. I'm just going to upload this category or this document to the category. And if I take a look on my test page, I've now added a new document, and of course it shows as new. Now, how is that achieved? How did SiteCM know that I wanted that document to be considered new? And how does SiteCM know that I want documents uploaded to my important category to be considered important? Let's add another document to the important category. Let's just upload this binder one. That sounds good. Success, uploaded. If I go to the front end of the site, look at that, another single list where documents are being uploaded to separate categories. The important ones are now starred. The ones that are new are showing as new. The list is growing, expanding by itself. As you notice, I have not edited my test page in any way. The responsive resource list acts dynamically, meaning it updates its display depending on what documents I'm adding to the categories that the responsive resource list has been pointed to. The meat and potatoes. Let's go to Pages and take a look at our test page and examine the differences between the non-responsive resource list that I've added to the page. This top example here, where here's my poster document. As you see, some of the documents are actually missing because the resource list is only pointed to one category at a time versus the responsive resource list. Here we go. The non-responsive resource list, when I double click on this drop-in application to edit its properties, you see the properties are fairly limited. Use thumbnails for images. Resource list does support images. So does the responsive resource list option as well. If you do upload images to a resource list, what it's going to do is going to show a small little thumbnail image that you can actually set the properties for, its width. The images within this list would then be downloadable, I should say, the same way that documents are able to be downloaded. It doesn't visually build a grid or photo gallery or something. It actually provides a media library. We've had some clients make use of it as a media library, where they wanted the brand people, their marketing team, to be able to come to the website, go to a password protected page, and then download any marketing material that they need visually as images. This is where the thumbnails for images comes into play. Get resources by category. Nothing's really changed here. Category or keyword. This is the basics of the resource list. Certainly, Eric has just asked from the group, will you put an image in so we can see what that looks like? Of course. Let's go with click done. Now again, just keep in mind that the webinar itself really, you can sort of play with some of these properties of the non-responsive resource list as well. Let's just take a quick look and go to resources, add an image to that resource list. And do I have one here? I think I do. Let's take a look at this one. Upload. And now I've added an image. If I go to my test page, as you see, the icon indicator is indicating that I've uploaded a JPG. I do not have thumbnails set for my additional 5 image up here. Let's go there and take care of that on my test page. And there are your little thumbnail. So, not necessarily a photo gallery, but it does give a little preview of the image that the person could potentially download. If they click on this link, what's going to happen is it's going to load the image in its own window because it's a resource. Now check this out. Back to my test page. I want to show you how much the responsive resource list has grown, how it's matured. Responsive resource list. Both of these drop-in applications, so you know, were inserted onto the page using the insert drop-in application icon. We're all familiar with this location. It's on the second menu row of page editor icons. You have your mouse over it. It says insert drop-in application. I click on this box. All of our drop-in applications, again, are categorized according to what asset they'll be most likely using. The exception to this is the common. These ones make use of more pages or other SiteCM functionality. We won't be covering these today. Images, for example, will cover image-based assets. You know, you want a photo gallery or slideshow or image rotator, go crazy. They are available in your website license underneath the images category. Today, resources, making use of resource assets. You have the resource list. This is the non-responsive version. The top of the page doesn't come with all the additional bells and whistles that I will be demonstrating to you. But if you want a simple out-of-the-box solution to build a list of documents on your page pointed to a single category, your resource list is there for you. The one I want to show you, though, is in our responsive category. Resource list. It really should say super overpowered resource list that offers a bunch of awesome stuff. But obviously the drop-in application box isn't wide enough to support such a title, so it says resource list. I click on this. Now as you see, the properties of this drop-in application are fairly extensive. It offers a lot more out of the box than our non-responsive version. We can still get categories resources by default, choosing either between category or keywords. If you're adding keywords to the properties of your resources, you can make use of the keyword option. I don't see a lot of clients making use of that out of the box, but it is available. Some use cases are for building a resource library where you want the list, you want the resources pulled from all categories within your resources section according to what keyword you set to them within keywords and descriptions. For this demonstration, I'm going to use category. It's the commonly used option. Now, default sort, name, date added, date modified, file size. As you see, we built on the sorters a little bit. Not only can you choose and sort your documents by their names, adding ranks to them as well. You can sort them by the date added, the modified date, the file sizes. I'm going to keep it to name for short. And default sort direction, ascending or descending, pretty much speaks for itself. Do you want them in ascending or descending order? Now the category list. Category list is the same as your out-of-the-box resource list, with an exception. you see here, I have resources, and then I have staff and public documents, and then I have a subcategory underneath of staff and public documents as well, called important. All of my documents are being uploaded to staff and public and the important category. So is it possible for me to include more than one category in my list? Of course it is. I can click on staff and public documents and use the following property, include child categories. In plain English, what that means is include any subfolders of the main folder I've just selected. This means display all staff and public documents and display any of the documents found in any of the subcategories as well. If I really wanted to, I could have also chosen resources, which would then display staff and public documents and the important documents categories as well. Now, some might think, well, wouldn't this lead to duplication, Michael, if you uploaded documents, if you shared a document between two categories and pointed the resource list and said include child categories? No. The resource list actually is intelligent enough to know that you have shared a document from one category to another. And just so for both all familiar with how to share a document between categories, I'm just going to go back to the SiteCM Manager, Assets, Resources, and I go to Staff and Public. Let's say I want this merchant implementation guide to not only be in the staff and public, but also to be considered important as well. I could share this document between the two categories, updating it. And that way I don't have to upload it twice. And it now appears in two categories. In my responsive resource list, being that I'm including the child categories, the merchant document, being that it's in the staff and public documents category and the important category, would still not display twice in the resource list. The resource list is intuitive enough to know that I've shared the document between the categories, should only show it once in the list. Now, here's where we get into some more advanced settings. Once you've selected your categories that you wish to display in your resource list, and if you choose to include the child categories, you then go into advanced settings where you can set some additional properties to your resource list. Do you want to display the little icons that appear to the left-hand side of the titles? Do you want to show JPG, DOC, PNG, PDF? You can choose to exclude those if you like by selecting or deselecting the property next to icon. Description. Now, resources do support a description. The description field here is where you would enter that description. I'm just going to enter a really small, short description. This CCM document covers the merchant process, and update that document. In a resource list, that description that I've added to the document would then display. Here it is. The responsive resource list does the same thing. I can choose to include or exclude the description. And I believe in the other version you couldn't do that. File size. Now, file size, you can choose to include or exclude that column of file sizes. If you find it's too messy, you can exclude it. Most of us want to know how big a file size we are downloading, but the option is available. Date created and modified. If you don't think that information is useful and you just want to be able to provide resource names, the icons, the descriptions, but not include the created or modified dates, you can simply exclude those properties. Now, day as new. This asks us for a number of days to consider the file as new within the resource list, thus generating the new icon that appears before the resource names themselves. This is looking for a whole number. You can't say like 2.5 days, 3.5 days. You just want 5 days, 10 days, 15 days, 20 days, 50 days, 1 day. It really depends. Looking for a whole number. You don't have to put 1 day, just one works, and it totally knows that to consider the documents as new for the duration of one 24-hour period, 1 day. There is no limit to the number of days that a document could be considered new. You are specifying that number here. And it is not when you originally created the document on your desktop. It is when you uploaded the document to the SiteCM Manager. That is when it starts considering it new. Obviously, SiteCM doesn't know it's stored on your computer beforehand. It only knows when it received the document within the SiteCM Manager. Important category. This is finally the way or the method that we use to provide our resource list with the little star icons you see on the left hand side indicating their importance within this list. When I expand this list, I'm going to tell SiteCM which subcategory of the selected root category should be considered the important category and to then star any of the documents within this category. I'm going to select the important category in this case, starring any documents I upload to or that I share with the important category itself. Once the DropIn application is fully configured and you're happy with your selections, you click the Done button and it adds the resource list to your page. I'm just going to delete that example one I just inserted and we'll work with the original, which is what I've configured here. As you see, your resource list displays on page as intended. Save and launch to save your changes. The responsive resource list, while it appears to not currently have thumbnails, I did notice that. You'll find that for building a document library, for a staff repository of documents, for a public-facing repository of documents, for any resource library overpowered, the responsive resource list will definitely suit your needs. This has been the SiteCM Responsive Resource List, a document and resource library overpowered webinar. I'm going to open the lines up for questions, and I really thank you again for attending. Again, this is Michael with ID Lever Solutions. Thanks again.